Attention.
Atención.
Rosetta Stone invites you to be a part of its biggest language learning event in history. Because in 2011, we want to help 3 million people learn a new language. That's why we're going to give you an absolutely free demo of our language immersion technology. Call 1-800-522-1164. Developed to fully immerse you in your new language, the Rosetta Stone solution is easier than ever before. For your free demo, call 1-800-522-1164. 1-800-522-1164.
This is awkward.
What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Cauliflower for the Ears. My name is Nick Frank, alongside my my co-host, as every week, Brian the Butcher Brown. How you doing, Dubs?
What's up, gangsta?
Doing good, my man. And the delicious one himself, Mikey Dolan. What's up, dolls? All right, guys. So what we're going to do, actually, I'm going to get right into. I'm going to skip all the pleasantries. We had an event this weekend.
What?
I've talked to you two enough over the weekend.
No.
We had the Ultimate Fighter finale, obviously. So first things first, I'm going to get into the fantasy standings as we sit after two events. So if we look at Saturday night, Mr. Butcher, you got one of two fights correctly. Yeah, it was a bad outing for you picking that Mayhem Miller clown.
Listen, go on with what you're saying. I've got excuses up my ass, so go for it.
So you got 1 out of 2 fights correctly for a total of 5 points. Me and Dolan had the same exact pick, so we both had 2 of 2 fights correctly for 10 points. So after 2 events, the grand totals thus far, I'm in first place with 26 fantasy points. Second place is Mr. Dolan with 22 fantasy points. And third place, Mr. Brown, 15 points, sir. Quite pathetic.
That's not so bad.
It's pretty
that's
bad.
not so bad. I wasn't paying attention. How far am I away from catching Dolan right now?
Well, conventional math would say 7 points,
yeah.
but I don't know what math you subscribe to. I just want to know how you fit the excuses up your ass with the proverbial dildo you stashed there 24/7, 365.
Well, I do take it out for the show, my friend, okay? It's not so comfortable when I'm sitting here, but I do have a lot of excuses, so we'll talk about those in a little bit.
Yeah, so just to give the listeners a little breakdown of what we're going to do tonight, we're going to spend a few minutes and talk about the Bisping Mayhem fight and the Ultimate finale that happened on Saturday night. We actually have a guest caller that'll be calling into the show around 9:15. We have Randy Gordon from Sirius XM, so that's sort of a big get for us over at Cauliflower for the Ears. So he's going to call in at 9:15. We're going to shoot the shit with him for a few minutes, and then we're going to preview UFC 140, obviously give our fantasy picks, but let's start on Saturday night with the main event, Michael the Count Bisping, of course, bludgeoning and battering looked like a gassed-out Jason Mayhem Miller. So let's start with you, my man, because you were the man standing on your 2 feet saying that Miller was going to, I think you picked him to stop Bisping. So
oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think if they fight again, it could happen. It could happen. After that showing, how could I not believe in Mayhem, you know? He looked really good out there. I don't know, dude, what can I say? You know, you and Dolo both agreed that Bisping was the much better striker, and I said it isn't that much of an advantage, if I remember. And I guess I was wrong with that. Obviously, gassed or not, he really didn't look so comfortable up there on the feet. But now to get to my excuses portion of the thing, like you pointed out, he looked gassed. He looked gassed pretty much halfway through the first round without getting that takedown towards the end of it and that mount up against the cage. I mean, he virtually did nothing in that fight, but obviously that expended the rest of whatever energy reserves Mayhem had for that fight, and that was it. I mean, he didn't look good coming out in the second round. Now,
How is that an excuse, dude? He gassed after going for a round in a 5-round fight in the first round.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He had a layoff for what, over a year? You know, so you know what? I'm going to go back to that excuse now.
He should have been a cardio machine then, my man. He had fucking 18 months to go running on a treadmill. He looked like the Red Rooster by the time that.
I don't know if it works that way. And you know what? Dan Henderson agrees with me. He said he looked like a guy who hadn't fought in over a year, and he wasn't impressed with Bisping either. So you know what? I'm going to take that. Dan Henderson's on my side. He said he just looked like he hadn't fought in a while. So kudos to you guys for being smart and picking Michael to count. Obviously, his boxing was way better, and I'm an asshole.
What about you, Doles?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good fight. It went exactly like I thought. Not that I was worried in the first round, but, I mean, Mayhem got him down towards the end of the first, and it was kind of a peculiar position, excuse me, where he had him against the cage, and, you know, he had his legs together, and he couldn't pull them out to get them out, and he did towards the end of the first round. But that was really all he did, and there was an incidental headbutt in the second. I mean, it wasn't anybody's fault, but Bisping, you know, had like a golf ball-sized hematoma right between his eyes, and after that, I think he kind of woke him up, and he stepped it up, and he pretty much picked him apart on the feet, and you know, Mayhem got his hands down, talking shit, getting popped, and you know, normally that's not a sign of toughness. That's just a sign that you're completely done. And I mean, he wasn't even trying to catch him or counter. But yeah, Bisping won. Dan Henderson came out today and said that if Anderson Silva's injuries will all go away if they offer him Bisping. If they offered Anderson Silva Henderson, he's injured. If they offer him Bisping, he's ready to fight tomorrow. So I second it. But Bisping looked good. And, you know, I mean, it's nothing to hang your hat on. I thought Miller looked like shit. I like Miller still, but he didn't look good.
Yeah, what was up with Miller's striking looked atrocious, and the funny thing about it was the first round obviously was a close round. A lot of people gave it to Miller because he got the quarter mount position or whatever it was and sort of controlled him for a while, but, you know, he was throwing his striking looked extremely slow. It was telegraphed, but he landed a couple rights, he landed a couple leg kicks, so Bisping did wind up taking the fight over and sort of dominating the fight, but he was getting hit in that first round, and you know, Miller looked like a guy that they dragged in off the streak, that didn't know how to fight. I was really shocked how bad he looked technically, and you know, the fact that everybody says that Bisping has pillow hands, and then you know, Bisping always refutes that fact, but I mean, it was sort of proven in the fight. If you look at I think it was the second round. Miller's just taking a pounding against the cage. He puts his hands down. He's talking shit. Now, it's not the smartest thing in the world to do, but was literally eating full force punches in the face and was never in jeopardy of getting knocked out. But I mean, what do you guys see next for Michael Bisping? Obviously, Chael Munoz and Chael Sonnen and Mark Munoz are hooked up together, and they do have a fight in the works for Bisping. They won't announce who it is. What do you guys see on the horizon for Michael Bisping?
It's going to be interesting. It all depends on the severity of Anderson Silva's injury. Do I think Anderson Silva was faking an injury to, you know, dodge Sonnen? I don't think so, but I don't know. I mean, you could warrant Bisping getting the shot because this would be kind of a little bit of a sentence to serve for Sonnen. Sonnen beasted Stan. If he comes out and beats Munoz, who looks good every single fight and hasn't lost in a while, then, you know, whatever happens in that Bisping Silva fight, if he can fight in a relevant matter of time, because that fight between Sonnen and Munoz is in January. So if Bisping and Silva fight in like March or even in, you know, April or June, then it could actually work out. I think it would be good. So then basically you're not condoning steroids. You can say Sonnen's got to earn it, and then Silva can't duck him when he's going to beat Bisping. There's no two ways about it. So I think it plays out, and I think Dana likes Bisping. I think he does. And, you know, it never hurts to have an Ultimate Fighter winner be in there for a title. Dana always tries, the consummate promoter wants to promote the show. So
yeah, there's no doubt. Just to sort of piggyback on that really quick, there's no doubt that he likes him. Michael Bisping makes $425,000 for that fight against Mayhem on Saturday night. Just wanted to throw that in there. That's a lot of money.
Plus what he made for the show. You know he made a shit ton of money to do the show and probably got a car and all that other stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, but I don't know. Obviously, I don't think any of us here think Bisping has a chance in hell to beat Anderson Silva. So I thought they were going to hold out and wait for after the Munoz-Sonnen fight, maybe have Bisping fight Sonnen, and then give Anderson Silva a proper time to heal. But if, like you said, Nick, if they're planning on a fight now, maybe they're going to have him fight Brian Stann just because I know the great American hero, and they would definitely like to bump Stan back up as quickly as possible, and hopefully he fills in some holes in his games and can compete for that title.
Plus, it's promote PR 101, dude. You got the fucking Brit everybody hates, and you got Mr. America, and the UFC's all about the promotion angle of it. But, you know, it was interesting because Sonnen said on, like, Wednesday or Thursday of last week that it was untrue that he was going to fight Munoz, and he said, I'll put it this way, I will be very interested watching the fight on Saturday. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to read between the lines there that he was saying he'd get the winner of that, and that would give maybe Anderson time to heal. But at this point, who knows, man, because I don't think you can throw Hendo out of the ring at 185 because that's a fight he'll go down and get Silva for. So maybe they're working on that. Maybe they're working on Hendo Silva, and then they're going to give Bisping Stan, and then you got Munoz Sonnen. So it could be fun, man, because that has ramifications in 205 and 185 when you put Hendo in there. And he said he would go down to 185 for Anderson. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a domino effect.
Yeah, I agree. And they asked Bisping and Dana White both said that night after the fight that they had a discussion and that he had an opponent, sort of ready, and Dana just had to sort of get it signed before he was going to announce anything. And Ariel Helwani asked Michael Bisping, is it somebody that you'd previously fought, thinking maybe either a Dan Henderson or a Vanderlei Silva or something, and he said no, so it's a new opponent. I don't get the impression that it's Anderson Silva yet. Anderson Silva's injured. I think he's going to sit and wait for the event in Brazil and wait for the Chael Sonnen and Mark Munoz winner. But you never know. I mean, Strikeforce is sort of debunked now. They can bring a 185er in from over there. I don't really know who they're going to put up against Michael Bisping to where if he were to win his next fight, he's going to get a title shot, because it seems like some of the big dogs are sort of tied up right now. But there's a lot of murmurs that his next fight might actually be on Fox. So it's sort of going to be a quick turnaround for him.
You think he'll be ready, Nick? On that hematoma alone, dude, on that headbutt, he didn't take a lot of damage in the fight. And let's not forget, Bisping looked gassed. By the end of the second round, he was grabbing his shorts. So it was just a matter of attrition on who gassed first, and Miller clearly did. But I don't know if he can get, those suspensions for hematoma could be, 2 months. So 2 months would put us past that. But, and also you said, you mentioned the Strikeforce. Tim Kennedy's over. Not that I think he's a world beater, but he's a guy who was up for a title shot over there, and they brought over to the UFC. So maybe that's somebody else you throw in the mix with Bisping.
Yeah, absolutely. And just sort of to go back to the fight itself, Dana White even sort of hinted that he's not so sure that Mayhem Miller is going to get another chance in the UFC because, it's not like it was a hard fight and he gassed late. He gassed almost immediately. He looked terrible. He didn't put a good show on. They did entertain the fans throughout the season, and he does have a likable personality and whatnot, but that was a terrible fight by him. Neither guy really looked too thrilled with the fight. Even Bisping didn't even look thrilled with it. What do you guys think's next for Mayhem? Does he get another shot in the UFC, or do you think that he's done?
I think Dana just jumped like he always does. He was pissed off. He was disappointed. Obviously, Miller didn't look good at all. We can all agree on that. But I think they got to give him another shot. I mean, I don't think he's had serious issues with his cardio before in his career. I mean, he went 5 rounds with Jake Shields. You guys remember that fight, right? Jake.
Yeah, that's not easy to do.
Retained the title, if you remember. But that was.
I remember Jake laying on him for 5 rounds.
And almost getting choked out. If there was another little bit, he's going to get choked out. I remember that.
Yeah, well, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But, there isn't the time ran out. Jake survived, and he went on to win the fight. But, with all that ground game, you think that would tire somebody out. So he didn't have cardio issues there. I mean, who knows? Maybe the guy's getting older. Maybe his body chemistry changed. Maybe he can't, do it unless he changes his training completely. But I think they got to give him one more shot to prove whether or not he can hang in the UFC. I mean, Dana, you know how Dana is. He's very quick to react. He's very quick to judge. And, he's attacked guys that he really loves in the sport, like Kenny Florian. And when Nate Marquardt was still his boy, he attacked him as a choker. So, he's very quick to react. But, of course, I wouldn't be shocked either to see him cut him.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown the propensity for rash decisions, but, I mean, he doesn't pull the trigger too rashly, but he's certainly not opposed to shitting all over one of his employees, and that's the part of being an independent contractor, like in these companies, where they can just dump you whenever. Who knows, man? There's enough heat there, and if Jakey Poo shits the bed against Akiyama in January in Japan, maybe you try to get some of that heat going again between, Miller and Shields. Because, I mean, Shields would be on the fence, and so would Miller clearly already is. Maybe you do that. But I was surprised that, Miller, as far as stature, looked considerably bigger than Bisping in the ring. Like, he was towering over Bisping. I didn't realize he was that big, which was more of a reason why I thought he might be able to put him in the tie clinch with his background and kind of expose it. But I was supremely disappointed in Miller. Do I think he should be done? No. Do I think he will? I mean, probably 60-40 just because they don't give a shit in the UFC. You know, what have you done for me lately? And Miller hasn't done anything. What I didn't like is Dana said that Miller's looked bad against St. Pierre and bad against Bisping. He took St. Pierre, like we said last week, to the cards when he was finishing people. I thought that was bullshit, but that was more a proponent of showing Dana being uber emotional, you know, and that just wasn't true. But either way, I mean, he signs the check, so, you know.
Most definitely.
Yeah, totally. I think overall, I think that the main event lacked a little bit of drama. I think the card on a whole was very good. So, you know, a free card is always nice. We've obviously got a big card coming up this weekend. But like I said earlier, we actually got a treat for the fans tonight. We've got Randy Gordon on the line right now. Randy's a guy that's done a lot in the fight business. I want to sort of give him a proper introduction and maybe educate some of the listeners as to what he's accomplished in his career. He was the associate editor of The Ring magazine throughout the 1980s. He was the color analyst for boxing programming on both ESPN and the USA Network. In 1988, he took over as chairman of the New York State Athletic Commission and held that position for 7 years. From there, he became the director of boxing for Foxwoods Resort and Casino. He's an established author with several successful books and co-starred in the Oscar-winning film The Accused alongside Jodie Foster. He's a member of the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame, and he's the current host of Fight Club and Friday Night at the Fights, both on Sirius XM Radio. Welcome to the show, Randy. We really appreciate you calling in.
Hey guys, I can't believe I did all that.
Yeah. I was going to say I was looking over your bio this week and figuring out some questions to ask you, and you really made me feel like shit about my own life reading about yours.
I wish if you take all the fight stuff away, I've done nothing.
Please, I was reading about your gift to charity. You gave tens of thousands of dollars to charity. You've been involved in all different kinds of media, so I do appreciate you taking a few minutes to call in. Now, Randy, first things first, you're somewhat infamous for playing a large role in the MMA ban that took place in New York in the 1990s. Obviously, a lot's changed since then. Go ahead. I'm sure people always bring that up to you. A lot's changed since then, and you're now sort of actively involved in getting the sport reinstated in New York State. So what sort of changed your mind, and when did that change take place?
Well, having grown up a kid of the 60s, if you will, I'm a 60-year-old guy who, was a kid of the 60s, and I was a boxing guy all the way. And, of course, back in the 60s, there was no mixed martial arts, the sport that we all know and love. And, of course, when I became the commissioner in New York, it was the commissioner of boxing. And then all of a sudden, my buddy, the announcer, Bruce Beck from NBC, told me he was going to be going out to Colorado and announcing this thing called Ultimate Fighting. And I asked him, what the hell is that? And he said, well, you'll be able to watch it. So it just was, to me, a complete shock. A guy who trains in boxing, has boxed with a little bit of success, not all that much, and here it was, I'm watching guys, and back in about 1993, there were 160-pound guys rolling around with guys 100 pounds more, kicking, punching, elbowing, and I said, oh my God, this is a street fight without a beer bottle. And it was too much, too quick, and when it came to passing it in New York, I just turned thumbs down, and actually the legislature was going to pass it. And I went before the legislature, and I basically jumped up and down, and I said, if you allow this in the state of New York, there's going to be bloodshed, and it's going to be on your hands, not mine. And they heard me, and they turned it down. But who would have known that within the next 6-7 years, they'd be bringing in a whole bunch of rules, making it a very safe sport, and that I would fall in love with it. I'd do a 180, and here it is all these years later. It remains banned in New York. So I'm going before the legislature early in 2012, and I'm going to kind of give them the same rah-rah pep talk that I did 17 years ago, and hope they hear me, and this time they pass it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, me and the guys were talking about it earlier, we need more guys from your generation. Maybe a lot of the UFC fans are, 18 to 35, but, guys in their 40s, 50s, 60s sort of coming to bat for MMA. What about the thought, the line of thinking that MMA is actually a lot safer than boxing, because in MMA, the gloves are smaller, the impact is harder, so if you get hit with a shot, the fight ends a lot quicker, whereas in boxing, if you go a 12-round fight and it's a war, the accumulation of blows has a worse effect on the fighter in the long run than does, 15 or 20 harder shots in mixed martial arts. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely do. I mean, years ago, back in the 60s and so forth, even when I was the editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine, there were 15-round fights, and you saw what the punches can do. I mean, Muhammad Ali has Parkinson's syndrome. More than likely it was brought on the incredible hard fights he had, especially near the end of his career. In MMA, yeah, there's some hard punches, but for the most part, we see guys tapping out. I have 8 grandchildren, a number of them around 5 years old, 6 years old, a number of them boys, and we're always rolling all around the floor, and I've put them all tapping out, and they love it. They play with Grandpa doing that, and as soon as I get them in a hole they can't get out of, what do? They tap out. That's exactly what you see going on in the octagon and in the cage in Bellator. The guys mainly will tap out.
Yeah. Being a guy that's sort of involved with both sports, I wanted to get your opinion on this. There seems to be a confrontational tone that arises in conversations and debates between boxing and MMA enthusiasts. Now, whether it's the promoters, the media, the fans, even the fighters, these are two very different sports. And in your opinion, are we going to see an end to this us versus them mentality that seems to exist right now between the two sides?
Oh, there's no question about it. In fact, on my SiriusXM show, which I co-host with 2 other guys, one of them is R.J. Clifford, and R.J. is the former editor of MMA Worldwide. He is a 30-year-old fighter, and he's got a 3-2 record, but he likes boxing, doesn't love it. But my other host, Ricky Bonet, we call him Bones, he'll tell you he likes boxing when he really doesn't. Personally, I don't think he can stand it. He was watching the Miguel Cotto fight the other night. He thought it was a dreadfully boring fight when, I don't know, now that I'm into boxing, I'm into MMA, I get the best of both worlds. I love them both. But a guy like Ricky, a 30-year-old guy who totally is into MMA, basically hates boxing. I find that the younger guys have no room in their stomachs at all for boxing.
Randy, Mike Dolan here. First of all, I want to thank you coming on and spending some time with us, and want to reiterate that my bio is written in crayon on a napkin. So I'm extremely impressed with you, and looking forward to hopefully, when you get in front of the commission, we can try to turn this around. I think it'll work out great for everybody involved. But you certainly mentioned, Miguel Cotto, and it brings up an interesting point that I think a lot of people thought going into the fight and got confirmation maybe this weekend with the first fight. Margarito really battered Cotto, and not knowing what was going to come in the fight with Mosley before with the hand wrap. And Cotto really looked, bludgeoned, like he had been hit with objects. So now that we see Cotto really handle Margarito and win this fight, how much of that do you think went to the illegal hand wrap, whether Margarito knew it was there or not? Is there that much more validity in it, and do you think that's what really won the first bout for him?
I'm convinced that, listen, 9 months later or 8 months after that fight, they caught him trying to go into the ring against Sugar Shane Mosley with loaded hand wraps. So I have to believe that wasn't the first time he did that, and I really will believe, always will believe, that in the first fight against Cotto, he did go in with loaded hand wraps, and of course, as you mentioned, Mike, that you saw the damage that was done on Miguel Cotto. And this time, with everybody looking over his shoulder, he had his hands wrapped properly, and he was in good gloves. There was nothing tampered with the gloves. And Cotto gave him a thorough boxing lesson, and whenever he was hit, nothing really happened to him. I believe that the man is a cheat. I've told him Marcachito, and it was totally, he got what was coming to him. Cotto got his pound of revenge.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, being a boxing guy, we're going to ask a question that you're probably asked 100 times thus far, but in the year 2012, are we finally going to see the big fight between Floyd Money Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao? And if we see the fight, who do you think is going to win that one?
Well, I do think we are going to see it. I think it is finally going to happen. I think that all sides, everybody is just fed up with this not happening. I think that Pacquiao has gotten just totally frustrated with hearing that it should be happening. Mayweather has been getting totally frustrated that hearing he's a chicken. And I do think it's going to happen, and it's going to make both guys incredibly wealthy. And I am actually of the belief that Mayweather just has way too much speed for Manny Pacquiao and will probably come away with a decision in that fight. I think it will be a great fight. I think it's going to be an action fight. Yes, I think it's going to happen, and I think that Mayweather is going to win.
I hope so.
I would tend to agree. I would tend to agree with both points there. I think Mayweather's got too much for him right now. Going back to MMA, we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years the growth of MMA. It's sort of grown at an astronomical pace, but there have been some within the media over the last maybe year or so that have maybe said that the UFC might have peaked around UFC 100. The pay-per-view buys have been down a little bit. Some people say that maybe there are too many events now, that it's getting watered down. Do you think that the sport has reached its peak in popularity? And if not, what elements are going to be essential to the continued growth of mixed martial arts in the future?
I mean, that's a great question, and that's something that we talk about. Of the 3 shows that we do each week called Fight Club on Sirius XM, I would say that at least on 2 of those, this particular topic comes up all the time. I do not think MMA is even near its peak yet. It's going to continually get bigger and bigger. Are the pay-per-view numbers down? Yeah, I mean, the statistics show that. And as you mentioned, I think the reason why is because there are so many. You know, they're asking you and me and everybody else out there to continually shell out, not just every 6 or 7 or 8 weeks. We're down to the point where it's about every 3 weeks now to keep shelling out about $55. Now, a guy like me is lucky where I can do it. And I have a lot of friends who can do it. But I also have other friends, and I know other people who just can't afford. They've got too many other things going on in their life. So you know what? On those nights, they come over my place. But there's a lot of people like them around that love MMA but cannot continually every 3 weeks shell out another $55 and another $55. So, yeah, the numbers are down, but look how many pay-per-view events the UFC keeps putting on. But now with this UFC on Fox, you watch how many new fans come into the sport.
That's a great point, Randy. And, you know, we shell it out pretty regularly here. And it does get tough, but it speaks to the product that I think the UFC puts out. Because even though some people might call it a saturation of the market, they have us salivating because they put together the fights we want to see. That's why boxing, I think, needs to put together the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight. Because that's the knock on boxing, that we don't get the big ones because people aren't getting paid. But I appreciate you before bringing up Bellator. And I think we all may be guilty of it. You know, people like ourselves who do these rink-a-dink shows, and then the big-timers like you, that we just fall in love with the UFC, and that's all we talk about. And obviously, they're the big dog, and they have, some might even call monopoly. And I think monopolies may be unhealthy for sports. It's always best when a promotion has competition that makes them thrive and be better. What do you think going forward for Bellator as far as, obviously hooking up with Spike TV and kind of stepping in there, and now with this Viacom ownership, they really have a chance and a propensity to move forward. So what do you see for them in the future, and how do you think it matches up, and is it a good thing for the UFC to have competition?
Well, you just mentioned that one name, Viacom. There's money there. And they do things in a very big way, and they're very much behind Bellator and the way Bellator has been going. This is not, from a few years ago, Elite XC or Affliction. They are not shelling out tons and tons of money on a guy named Fedor. Yeah. They are doing things right. Now, starting in March, they're going to be moving their shows from Saturday to Friday, and we had a big discussion about this on the air today. They're going to be going up against the UFC's The Ultimate Fighter, which is going to be live, or maybe a little bit before The Ultimate Fighter. You know what? I think this is great. Why? Because it's going to bring a whole bunch of eyeballs that are going to be watching the UFC. Well, as long as they're going to be in front of their TVs, why don't we watch Bellator? Personally, I think this is going to be very good for Bellator. I am another guy. I'm totally in favor of competition. Can you picture, and it might be a little hard for you young guys to understand this, but back in the 70s or so when Don King was coming along and he had all these fighters, if he had no competition, every fighter would have been tied to him. But then Bob Arum came along and a few other promoters, and they all were competing with each other. So a fighter had the choice. Do you sign with King? Do you sign with Arum? Do you sign somewhere else? And even though it kind of fractured some of the titles, it allowed fighters to make a choice rather than be just beholden to one big promoter. And I think that the UFC, while as great as they are, they've become that one big dog, that one monopoly that, if you ask the fighters, I think they would like to be able to make a choice. But really, in this case, they can't.
I think you hit the nail on the head there with a couple points. Number one, Bellator coming up and being some sort of a competitor to the UFC is going to be a great thing for the fighters because they do have a bit of negotiating power. And number two, the fact that they're not going out and spending $1 million on Andrei Arlovsky and $800,000 on Tim Sylvia, they're growing Eddie Alvarez, and they got Hector Lombard, and we had that great Michael Chandler against Eddie Alvarez a couple weeks ago. That, in my opinion, was the best fight of the year.
Of the year, if not the fight of the year.
Absolutely.
And just Bellator's luck, they go out and they put that card on, they put that incredible fight on, and then later that night you get Shogun versus Henderson, which overshadows the entire event.
I know. We were talking about that when I came in the next 2 days later on Monday. We were doing our show. Of course, all the talk was about Henderson and Shogun, and we had to get it in that Chandler and Alvarez not only was a great fight, it was probably a better fight than the Henderson fight.
I agree. Right now, Randy, as we sit today, who do you think is the best pound-for-pound fighter in MMA? Is it Anderson Silva?
Oh, boy. You know, it probably is, although I really don't think that's going to last too much longer because, he's closer to 40 than he is to 30. He's not going to be fighting until June. Apparently, he's beginning to break down. He's really out for a while with all these injuries, or you got to ask, is he injured? Or if he just chose, let's say, Chael Sonnen to fight, he'd have to fight Chael Sonnen, and should he get past Sonnen, it was going to probably be Mark Munoz. So instead, he let them go against each other just by saying, listen, I'm injured. But yes, I think that Anderson Silva is the best. I think that GSP is hot on his heels, but I think coming up very quickly, and I think you'll see it on Saturday, is John Bones Jones.
Well, that's actually, I have one more for you, then I'm going to let you go. I was actually going to ask you, UFC 140 in Canada this Saturday night. You have John Jones, as you mentioned, against the former title holder, Lyoto Machida, a guy who at one point many people thought was unbeatable as well. John Jones is the belle of the ball right now. He looks like nobody can touch him. Is there any chance of Lyoto Machida leaving Canada this weekend with that belt?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, here's a guy who's lost to Rampage Jackson. He lost to Mauricio Shogun, who, you have to think, what did John Jones do to those guys? So what? In his last fight, he beat Randy Couture with a jumping front kick or whatever. Do you think he would ever land that on Jones? Not in this lifetime, he's not. He's a good fighter, an outstanding fighter. He's got a good chin. Good hands, good legs. He's going to move for a while. But I think anything he can do, John Bones Jones can do better. I am going to be surprised if this is anything but a John Bones Jones victory. I don't care if it's by decision, knockout, submission, however it ends, it's going to be John Bones Jones the winner.
Well, there you have it. You heard it here. What's that?
How's that taste, Franco? Randy, Franco's a hater of Johnny Bones Jones, so I'd love you to put that venom in him.
You really can't be, are you, Frank?
I respect him as a fighter. I feel he just irks me the wrong way in interviews once in a while, but there's no denying that he's at least, one of the three best fighters in the world right now. I tried to deny it for a while. Every fight he looks better. He's just that good. He's really good.
He is, and, he might be cocky, and he's 24 years old, and I know they're trying. We had Greg Jackson on today, and in private he was telling me that he's really trying to reel John in, and you got to realize a guy is 24 years old, and they're calling him the best mixed martial artist around. He just may be, if he can keep his head together, and that's a big if. You never know what's going on with these guys. If he just keeps it all together and continues to be the family guy that actually got him into this to begin with, I think he's going to be talked about in another 4 or 5 years as maybe the best mixed martial artist we have ever seen.
Yeah.
That's how good I think he is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Randy. I agree with you. You guys, you can listen to Randy Gordon on Sirius Channel 94 and XM Channel 208. Fight Club airs Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays from 4 to 6 p.m., and Friday Night at the Fights airs every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Anything else you want to get the word about, Randy?
No, guys, it's just a great sport, and you guys are doing such a great job with your show, and we need more like it. And I got to tell you, anytime you need me, I've had a lot of fun. I'll be glad to sit in and talk MMA with you guys.
You're the best, Randy.
That's awesome, Randy. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. Enjoy your night.
Thank you for having me on, and enjoy your night. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Randy.
Take care. Okay, guys, we'll be back right after this.
A new era has dawned in blogging. Log on to thexlog.com and experience new standards and quality in commentary and analysis. Powered by RotoExperts.com, thexlog.com brings together the top expert bloggers with all the very best the Internet has to offer. You don't have to search for the most compelling and entertaining posts and writers anymore. They will be at your one central hub for high quality. So join us as a new revolution begins in sports and entertainment, only at thexlog.com. That's THEXLOG.com.
THEXlog.com, everybody. Hey, boys, I'm back.
There he is.
Hey,
So hell of an interview.
Dubs, are you still going to pick Machida? After Randy just claimed Jones is going to be the greatest ever?
Yeah, I probably am. Obviously we're going to get into that in a bit. I mean, I'm sure you boys did a hell of an interview there. I went dark for a little bit, so I came in at the end. I heard that he said that he's probably going to be the best ever, but I want to see what happens on Saturday, obviously. So I'm not too. I've been hugging John Bones' nuts for the past few months now, especially after he took out Shogun. But as you know, I love Lyoto Machida, so I'm going to have to see that first, and then maybe I'm ready to anoint them.
Yeah, these are your boys. That's true, Dubs, because you do definitely back and ride with Johnny Jones when Franco was tooling on us for saying Rampage is going to be a cakewalk, a la you and I having a crystal ball. You got to put it to the gusto here, Dubber. I can't wait to see who you got and why. You want to roll right into it?
Of course.
Yeah, Dubs, you go first, you rat bastard.
I'm going to. I'm going to. So obviously this Saturday is UFC 140. The main event pits Johnny Bones Jones versus Lyoto Machida. And I, of course, already picked this fight, but I'm going to give you my reasons why. Obviously, we know Lyoto has great takedown defense. He's a very elusive fighter. He's definitely a counter-striker. And anytime he has a lockup, especially when he's pushed up against the cage, on the way out, he definitely makes people pay for it. So, you know, as we've all spoken before about it, we haven't seen John Jones' chin tested, and we know Lyoto can hit pretty hard when he wants to. You know, obviously he knocked out Rashad Evans to take the title. We know Rashad's got a suspect chin, but it was still a hell of a knockout when it happened. And, you know, I'm pulling for my boy Lyoto. I think what's going to happen is it's going to be Lyoto playing his elusive style and, like I said, locking up, winning on the exchanges and staying on his feet. So I got Machida winning by a unanimous decision.
All right. Wow, UD. Lyoto.
Yeah, UD. 3 rounds to 2. I'll give Johnny Jones 2 of those rounds. Go on. I'm sorry.
Wow. You're so generous.
I know. I'm trying.
You know, I like to do my old tail of the tape thing. So we got John Jones 14-1. Only loss was by disqualification, so he's really undefeated. 6'4", 24 years old. The future of the sport. This is going to be his 4th fight in 2011. He has beaten Ryan Bader, Shogun, and Rampage Jackson. But his toughest test is going to probably be, to this point, Lyoto Machida, 17-2. You know, a decent-sized light heavyweight, 6'1". He's put on about 20 pounds of muscle is what I read. He brought King Mo in to work on his wrestling. He has lost 2 or 3, though, and his only win was against Randy Couture. So it's sort of questionable to be even giving him this title shot right now. I don't think anybody is debating the fact that he has the skills to be in this spot, but you know, it's a bit of a weird run for him that he just had, and then to go into this fight, it's a little bit strange, but he's got a weird style that's hard to train for. But John Jones is just that good. He's just that good right now. Nobody's ever able to really confuse Machida. I think Jones is going to be able to do that. Jones has the reach and the athletic ability to fight where he wants to fight. He's going to get this fight to the ground eventually. He's going to use his power. Machida may have some technique on the ground as far as jiu-jitsu goes. Jones has much better wrestling. He's a bigger, stronger guy. He is going to wear him down with his wrestling, his down game, and I got John Jones with a TKO in the 4th.
Oh. Come on.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one for you, Dubs. I'm a big Machida fan, and it just shows how quick the tides change. Because I mean, 2 years ago we were talking about Machida the way we're talking about Jones. Maybe not with the age factor as the future, but as far as people were looking at him and just saying, "What do you do with this guy?" He had that karate style. You know, he really was elusive. I think he's going to kind of frustrate Jones a little bit, not in the sense that he's going to, you know, be able to get in there and bum rush him. I think he's just going to be hard to find, which is why you'll see that I made the pick I did. But I just think that eventually it's going to go both ways, where Jones is just so long and that dong is so sweet that I think he's just going to keep Machida at bay, and I think he's going to frustrate Machida and force him to do something he doesn't normally do, which is come in and commit to where he goes in and out. Normally, I think he's going to have to commit more than he wants to. I think it's going to take Jones a little bit of time to find him. It's a matter of if he implements Jackson's game plan, and Jackson and the crew are good game planners. I think he's just going to be patient. He's going to be happy to just sit there and pick all day against Machida, and once he comes in, he's going to make him pay. I got Johnny Jones finishing via KO or TKO in the 3rd round.
Wow, you guys have no face. I mean, you know, I'm not going to be shocked if Johnny Jones pulls it off. I just think that Lyoto's style is probably best suited to try to stay out of that long reach. But, you know, obviously we're seeing greatness. So if he does get past Machida, then the sky's the limit. You know, the only other guy in the way is really Rashad. So, you know, that fight's coming. Hopefully Rashad doesn't lose in his next fight out. But moving on to the headlining fight, it's Frank Mir versus Minotauro Nogueira. And Franco, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, well, we got a rematch from I believe it was 2 years ago when they hooked up after The Ultimate Fighter. Nogueira, some people think he's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Probably the best big man who has the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got 20 submissions. There was a point there in the mid-2000s where there wasn't a heavyweight on the world who was, you know, practicing Jiu-Jitsu like he was, and he could stand and bang, and he could go to the ground. So sort of a resurgence in his career with the win over Brandon Shaw back in Brazil. He is 33-6. He's 35 years old, so he's getting there. He's 2-2 over his last 4. There's been some rumblings that he had staph during his last fight with Frank Mir, that he wasn't fully healthy, he didn't get a full training camp. You could make an excuse after every loss, but that's what he had said. Frank Mir, 15-5 with 8 submissions, 32 years old, in his athletic prime right now. He's won 2 of his last 3. Looked great against Big Country. Is he going to stand and bang with Nogueira like he did the first time? Is he that confident in his hands? Frank is pretty good everywhere. He's got his strongest suit would be his jiu-jitsu, but I don't think he really wants to play with Nogueira there. He wants to prove that the last win against Nogueira was not a fluke. I think that's going to be his downfall. I think he's going to stand in front of Nogueira like he did last time, and Nogueira is going to be able to take his shots better than he did, and Nogueira is going to return fire. Frank Mir does not have the best chin in the world, and I've got Big Nog KO in the second.
Wow. Well, I'm going to go the exact opposite because, Big Nog, obviously, he definitely said he had staph, whether it was an excuse or not. You heard all those kind of reports that he was sick. But, Big Nog is definitely on the end of his career, the end run of his career. He knocked out Shaw his last time out, but, he was definitely in trouble. Shaw got cocky, and, then he was able to catch him. But I think Mir, his striking is at its best it's ever been at this point in his career. He knocked him out the last time. I think Mir's going to be very comfortable standing in the pocket and trading. And to mirror what you said, I see Mir knocking Big Nog out in the second round.
I like it, Dubs. I got to give a shout-out to my boy Arn Nealon in tonight, too, calling out the summertime. I love it. What up, Nealon? I was with him yesterday. That kid gets creepier by the day. I love it.
He's got the one loss squad there in League Brutal. That's
dude, and he traded Gronkowski to Dubs, the fucking kid.
Yeah, that's going to be his downfall in the playoffs. I didn't pull it off in the regular season, but when we meet up, I'm going to rape your ass there, Nealon.
Dubs, it was as if we channeled you yesterday, too, because at all times we were just absolutely killing him. Like, he'd be sitting there, and I'd be like, hey, Nealon, Gronkowski just scored a 67 touchdown today. Good pick, though.
Yeah, he just threw a rant on the message board earlier tonight. It was pretty funny.
Oh, it's amazing, dude.
I got to go check that out.
He was flipping out. I was saying, Gronkowski's so good, he's just the guy I would never dream of trading, would you? And we were just killing him. But anyway.
Yeah. Gronkowski doesn't fuck porn stars or anything either.
No, not at all.
Just another reason I'd never trade him. What's it called? So, I don't know, dude. I think this is going to be a good fight. I don't think the first fight was a fluke. I mean, I thought that was the best Frank Mir we had seen post the motorcycle accident in that fight. I think, Nogueira, definitely, I think, one of the best heavyweights of all time. I love the hatchet wound he's got in his back. I always dream about getting, 5 minutes in heaven with that thing. But I don't know, dude. I just think if he doesn't knock out Schaub, he may have been getting the talk from Dana as far as it was time to retire. He used to have to hit him with a hatchet to knock him out, and you still couldn't. He's been put out a few times now. I think he's great. I think Frank will avoid going to the ground if he can. But Frank is no slouch on the ground. He's probably the second best heavyweight of all time as far as jits goes. I think he's going to be able to kind of, weather the storm a little bit, and I think Nog's only got a puncher's chance where I think Frank will put it together and put the accumulation. I got Frank's second round KO as well.
Beautiful. I think that's a smart pick, though. And,
I hate it now.
Come on, I know my shit. Look at my score.
Yeah, you're whopping 15 points.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's just move on to the next fight because obviously this pits Tito, the Huntington Beach bad boy Ortiz against Big Nog's little brother, athlete named Lil Nog. Dola, tell me about it.
Yeah, I'd have to put him in the same crew with Overeem's kid brother as, he's here because of his brother. He's definitely a good fighter.
He's better than Overeem's little brother, though. Come on.
Yeah, Overeem's brother taps when a breeze comes in. Little Nog's good, don't get me wrong. And I think, the time has just kind of passed him by. He's 2-2 in the UFC. Lost to Bader and Phil Davis, right? That's nothing to be embarrassed about. But he got a bullshit decision against Jason Brills that a split decision.
Yeah, but those were. I think he won that Ryan Bader fight, and that Davis fight was close too. So I agree he lost that Brills fight, but I mean he's been every fight he's been in is very competitive in the UFC.
Hey Franco, no way, no how. Excuse me, sir. Can I finish? Can I finish? All right, I'm finished. I don't know, dude. I don't want to hop on the fuck out of it. I don't want to hop on the Tito train because, you know, Tito, his stat line would look shittier than Little Nog's, you know, if he doesn't catch Bader with a punch and in the guillotine choke. But I don't know. I think Tito will probably win. You know, I don't really give a shit. Yeah, I got Tito winning, dude, because I hate Little Nog that much. I got Tito winning via decision.
Oh, my God. Well, do you want to go first, Franco?
Yeah, I'd like to go
I'm backing up Dolo on this one, so you want to rip us both at the same time?
Oh, my God, you two. You guys make it so easy.
We learned nothing from
last seven fights, 1-5-1. You know, I mean, even the Ryan Bader fight, he caught him with a lucky punch and finished him. He got dominated by Rashad.
Hey, Nick, did you see what he did to Shamrock, dude? Did you see what he did to Shamrock?
Yeah. Most dangerous man in the world.
Wins. I'll give Tito this. The only guy to ever knock him out was Chuck Liddell, so he takes a beating. He's a tough guy, but I think Nogueira is vastly underrated. You know, he's had some huge wins in Pride. Like I said, I think he's been competitive in the UFC. He's 35 just like his brother, but I think he has less wear and tear on his body. He got outpointed in those two fights against Phil Davis and Ryan Bader. He's got great boxing. He's got better stamina than Tito, just because of Tito's heart and his chin. And the fact that Tito actually came out before this fight and, you know, said that he's going to consider retiring this year, that he wanted to do 15 years in the sport, and that his doctors told him, you know, when he got his surgery last, that he had 2 or 3 more years of banging around before he needs another surgery. He doesn't want to have another surgery. I don't think Tito's heart's really in it, and I got Little Nog by decision.
Wow, that's a shame, because I know Tito was finally healthy and he was looking a lot better. But like I said, I'm going with Dolo here. I'm rolling the dice on this one. I haven't picked Tito in the last few years because I'm not really a fan. This is my fight. I'm picking Tito Ortiz, unanimous decision. So, yeah. Good. Well, I guess, Frank, you're going to run away with it again.
Nick Dubs isn't even giving him a round. He's going UD. Fuck this split that.
You're not going to get points for that.
Well, you and the cream of wheat, take your ass back to Mayberry and say I beat you have my bean pies. I'm going to beat her ass.
Oh, shit.
I guess we'll move on to the next fight on the card. Pits Claude the Prince Patrick versus Brian Bad Boy Ebersol Franco.
Yes, sir. This is a good fight. Claude Patrick's 14-1. His only loss was early in his career to Drew McFedries. He's got 9 submission victories. He's won 13 straight fights and 3 in a row in the UFC. He's from Ontario, so he's going to be in front of the home crowd. He's going to have the home crowd advantage. Great submission game, really strong, really athletic. Brian Ebersol, though, you know, talk about a veteran. This is going to be his 65th MMA fight. Also got a good submission game. He's got 20 wins by submission, 2-0 in the UFC, with victories over Chris Lytle and Dennis Hallman. His last loss actually was to Hector Lombard back in 2008, and Hector Lombard right now is a top 10 middleweight. He's very well rounded. He's extremely savvy, but I think he does have 20 wins via submission, but he also has 7 losses by submission. A lot of those were earlier in his career, but I think that Patrick's he's a bit younger. He's hungrier. He's got a little bit less mileage on that body, and I see Claude Patrick submitting him in the second round.
Wow, that's a risky pick. I think with all the experience Ebersol has had, obviously you pointed out he's got the 7 submission losses, but I think with all the experience he's racked up, he's definitely figured out how to get out of those subs. He's tough to choke out. I mean, both fights you've seen him in, there's been deep chokes, and he's gotten out of both of them. I don't think Ebersol can finish this fight, but I definitely think he's going to win a unanimous decision.
That's it, huh? That's all you got for your boy Ebersol?
Well, you know, what do you want me to say? I don't think it's going to be, that overly exciting. I think it's going to be 2 guys kind of mugging up on each other the whole fight. I think Ebersol's going to cut it out, though. And depending on your, how you feel about that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, it could be very.
Please, dude. Cream rises, milk curdles. What you got? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely going to be a good fight. I definitely disrespected Ebersol last time in his last fight when he did us all a favor and took care of that banana hammock that was getting rocked by Dennis Hallman. So Dana actually gave him a bonus for that whooping just to get him out of there. But I think he's definitely a good fighter. But I think, to reiterate Nick's point, I think Claude Patrick is definitely coming into his own. He's 3-0 in the UFC, and he's got a lot of wins via the submission. Obviously, Ebersol is well-versed, but, I mean, when you got 65 fights, how are you not well-versed? So I think it'll help him. I don't think it'll save him. I got Claude Patrick winning a second-round sub as well.
Jesus, I'm going to be gaining ground this Saturday. I know I said that last Saturday, but this Saturday I think I'm definitely going to be gaining on you fellas. All right, last fight pits Mark the Machine Hominick versus Chang Sun-jung, the Korean Zombie. Tell us.
Definitely going to be a good fight. I'm curious to see how Hominick's going to bounce back. Came off that loss to Jose Aldo in front of his countrymen, his brethren. But, I mean, showed, balls for days in that fight. That was the most disgusting hematoma I'd ever seen. Literally looked like Halloween. He had a second head growing out of his forehead. But he showed that he could hang in there. He can bang. Extremely technical fighter. But, he's very well-versed in the submissions. I mean, he's definitely was on a 5-weight win streak before he got beat by Jose. But let's be real, Korean Zombie, great name. We know how Franco feels about the Asians, but he's 11-3, 7 subs, 2 knockouts. He's definitely can strike as well. He was 15-6 as a kickboxer with 11 knockouts. But I just think Hominick, where he is right now, I think he's going to come back big. He's fighting in front of his countrymen again. I got Hominick via decision.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Mike, especially going back and fighting in front of his countrymen. He lost last time. Obviously he's motivated just to get a win, but let alone he ain't going to want to let his countrymen down again. So both these guys have great chins, so, I mean, you could see a war out there. I don't see, again, another fight that I don't see a stop, but I think it's going to be a pretty exciting fight back and forth. But I definitely think Hominick's going to pull out the decision.
Yeah, we actually got a clean sweep here. I'm going to take Hominick by decision as well. The Korean Zombie. I almost picked the Zombie, and I wish I had now because then me and Dubs would have the exact opposite picks for every single fight. But the Zombie, 2-2 over his last 4. He lost 2 straight, and then he came back with his rematch with Leonard Garcia, and he fought a very intelligent fight and wound up submitting him. I do think this one's going to be back and forth, and I probably think it's a 29-28 fight, 2-1. I don't think it's going to be a breeze for Mark Hominick, but I did take Mark Hominick by decision.
I think that's a smart pick, pretty safe. I mean, Hominick, he's got more fights, more experience, and he's got to be motivated to bounce back from that loss. So, I definitely think it's a pretty good choice there. But enough of that. Talking about these second-rate fights, let's talk about Strikeforce for a second. You see that Keith Jardine's getting a shot at the middleweight title over there?
After a split decision?
Yeah. What's that?
Didn't his last fight go to a draw against
yes.
Masai? How does he get a title shot?
Well,
you know
what? This is so weird. Go on, Frank. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. The roster's so depleted. I don't think it's a terrible fight. I think he's got a shot in that fight. Actually,
He's
going to be bigger. Yeah. The titles don't mean anything there. Henderson was the champion and came to the UFC. Nick Diaz was the champion. He came to the UFC. They haven't crowned new champions yet. They haven't, it's sort of just, I just read that Showtime and Zuffa, they just re-upped the deal. Basically what it's going to be, it's going to be Strikeforce, but the Zuffa fighters they're going to lend UFC fighters over there. It's legitimately going to be like a feeder league where it's going to be like minor leagues and like the Strikeforce Challenger Series, but they're going to show some younger guys there. They'll keep a couple guys, maybe like a Keith Jardine will be one of the names that they keep over there. And so they renewed it for 2 years for about half the price of the last contract because they're not going to get the big marquee fights. But Zuffa is going to be having fights on Showtime for at least the next 2 years under the Strikeforce banner.
Can guys go back and forth, Nick? Like even like bigger name guys, are they going to lend? So they're going to lend that. There's going to be really no barrier. I
just read that they would lend UFC contracted fighters to the Strikeforce shows. I don't think you're going to see. Listen, any big name fighter, they're either going to put on one of the Fox stations or on pay-per-view. I don't think you're going to see any big guys, but
no.
I think
I think that like a Keith Jardine's a perfect example. Maybe Mayhem Miller's next fight, like guys like that who have a little bit of name recognition and can get a couple people to tune in, but aren't so valuable that they're going to be wasting them if they don't put them on pay-per-view. I think those are the types of guys that you would see on those shows.
Well, I was thinking more this is going to be easier, one, to get Gil over to fight, hopefully Frankie, if Frankie beats, Ben Henderson, but also, we can get King Mo if, Rampage and him keep talking shit and they want to fight and whatever. We can have that cross-pollination. It'll be fun, and we don't have to deal with, are they going to pluck him or is somebody going to be stuck over there like Gil? So, I mean, that's just going to work. I think Showtime's saw the writing on the wall. They're like, do we want to make no money off this or do we want to make some money? So I think it's good.
Well,
absolutely.
What they said, basically, a big factor, you had mentioned it the other week, Dolan, they don't want Bellator to have the corner of the market on women's MMA.
Uh-oh.
That's one of the major reasons that they renewed, so they can keep the women's MMA on strike.
Well, Franco, we really couldn't hear you, but we got to wrap it up anyway. Everybody, first off, thank you, Randy Gordon, for calling in. Everybody remember to check out Roto Experts. Check out the xlog.com. Make sure you check out Nick Frank at nfrankrotox. Check out my Twitter, Cauliflower, the number 4 ear. I really don't write on it, but if you write something, maybe I'll notice it. Maybe I'll say hello. Dola, how do we get in touch with you?
Hopefully Randy Gordon plucks me from this shithole when I go on his show. So, later.
Well, me too, buddy.
Thanks for listening. Dubs, end the show. My computer froze.
Stop.
We got it.